You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to Oklahoma HOF on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are down at Bedford's Camera, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce a good mate of mine. We met last year, went through a grueling 6-month fitness challenge together. Both of us got in shape, and then I learned all about your artwork. And so, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jay Sage, who I would probably say I've never met anyone who does the art that you do. And so it's fascinating the way that you do your artwork, and we'll dive into all that process. But before we do that, as we do with the podcast, we set some context, talk about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And so you're not an Oklahoman, right? You moved here a while back, but I mean, you were born and raised out of state.
Yeah, I was born in New Mexico.
Okay.
Bounced around kind of all over the place, but we were in Denver before we came here.
Before it was like crazy in Denver?
Yeah, actually we moved right when it became crazy.
Yeah.
It was just not really...
It's nuts now, right? Like,
yeah,
it's chaos. I was there 2 years ago, and the family we stayed with were like, yeah, they're on the outskirts, so they were.
We were just there last year. Well, wait, did you go? You went.
I went August of 23. I was out there.
Okay, you didn't go.
No, you guys didn't climb the mountain. Yeah. No, I didn't. I was out.
Yeah, that's right. You weren't able to go.
Yeah.
But we were there for that. But we were there again. My family went up there recently. This last year, and it's so different. It's like the downtown area is just. You just don't go there anymore. Like that was like I got there and I was so excited because I was like, let's go eat at the restaurant like that I love and like all this stuff. Yeah. And my friends who still live there, they're like, oh no, we don't go there anymore. And I was like, wow, really?
There's nothing worse than going back to a place you have so many great memories at, and you're like, oh, it's not the same anymore, right?
Yeah.
And you want to take your kids and your family and show all the things you used to do, but
it's mainly just the food. I miss all the food.
Food is epic. So like. From a young age, are you like most boys and how I was, like just grabbing a pen and paper and drawing cars and drawing houses and just like being, getting dirty, building Legos, playing with whatever and being creative?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially the Legos.
Still playing with Legos. I am no shame.
Yeah. No, I've wanted to get a. I was getting Legos for my kids for Christmas this year, and there was this big Death Star, but it was like it was a Death Star and a Millennium Falcon, but it was the dark Death Star and like dark Millennium Falcon or something. I don't know. It was like all of the little figures were like evil Sith versions of themselves and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. It was like a black Millennium Falcon. Anyways, it was huge. Anyway, the little kid in me, I was like, oh, I'm going to get those. I'm going to take them to the studio, and I'm just going to like build them over time. And it's like, that's so.
Ginger's like, what did you do today?
But they're so expensive. Yeah, they're so expensive. They're like they're models now. So it's. But no, I definitely, from a little kid, I've been really artistic, and I think that I like to say that everyone's an artist. Yeah. Just I agree. Some of us don't grow out of it.
Yeah, like I my art teacher was not happy when I chose not to like continue doing, art in school. Like in school back home, when you come to a certain age, you kind of got to like choose your path, right? And for most people, it's business or something to get into university and go make money at. Quote, make money at. Because the art world's very competitive. But, you're right. I think we all like color and draw, and there's creative parts of all of us. And now with iPhones and all the rest of it, people are creating, with their phones and their, iPads and smart pens and all the crazy stuff that's going on. I guess it's probably never been easier to be creative in today's world than it was when we grew up. Yeah,
no, it's absolutely. My daughter, she's 10, and she's on her little tablet just drawing away and figuring things out, things that I could have never even dreamed of. I had to have the Big Chief notebooks and the, which I think is super not PC. Like, I don't think they even make, I can get those anymore. Yeah. Most people don't even know what I'm talking about. When I tell them that, and I was like, every year for Christmas, my granny would get me a Big Chief notebook and a pack of, colored pencils. And that's what I learned to draw on. But, yeah, now it's just the tablets, the phones. The phones have little like Procreate apps, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But
who you mentioned your grand getting you that pad and pencil for Christmas? Was it predominantly her that was like the creator in your family, or was anyone else stand out to
you? No one was actually really a creator in my family. That's what's interesting, is I kind of stood alone on that. But I don't have some sob story. Well, at least not related to like my art. So like if this was America's Got Talent, I wouldn't make the cut, because I would be up there crying and but
beat you up and stole your pencils.
everybody in my family really supported me. They really believed that I could do this, and we're very supportive. So I did grow up, outside of my family, obviously society. I did grow up with a lot of the negative and the just kind of, misinformation and things like that. You only make money when you're dead, or the only thing you can do is teach, or, starving artists, which I hate that. I hate that term so much. My goal in life is to eliminate that term from people's vocabulary, because you're only a starving artist if you choose to be. Like that's and again, society's influence on artists really plays a huge part in that. Like, it's like, well, of course you're going to be a starving artist, because everyone tells you that like you have to just hustle or sell your art out of the back of your car or do all these things. Like, you're not good enough. You're never going to make money. You got to have a real job. Even my wife, when people would ask her like, oh, what does your husband do for a living? She'd say, oh, he's an artist. And they're like, oh, that's really cool, but like, what's he do? How do you answer that? Right. So, and that's fairly recent. That's
crazy. There's still a stigma around that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You're a professional artist. Like, you have like work in a gallery in LA. Like, you're very successful at what you do.
People, and you're right, a stigma. People don't realize how important we are to society. And I'm not like saying I'm a big important guy, patting myself on the back, but you know, the mark of a wealthy society, you know, like throughout history. I mean, Greeks, Romans, Aztecs, everyone knew it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's the art. You go to a city and you look around, you know that's a wealthy city because of its arts.
Yeah.
And so that directly plays into the economy, right? And business and infrastructure. And the more, you know, the more the artists make and the more prolific and profound they are, the more these businesses will succeed, and the more, you know, tourism and commerce and things you bring into the city. And yet, no one seems to care or think about that. They're like, oh yeah, sure, they'll agree with me and they'll nod their head, but they're like, you know, but you're not some big Fortune 500 company coming in, or you're not doing some, really it's tech. Tech is the thing that everyone cares about right now. And, you know, with AI and, I don't even want to get into that.
We can go down that rabbit hole another time if we have to. But you're right, though. I think that, you know, there is that kind of, like I said, stigma around art, and you know, I think you're totally right as far as when you look back at history and society, and you know, all of the artwork and even just the valuations of it. And I know you mentioned, you know, you make money when you're dead. Well, no, you don't, because there's a lot of, yes, your value goes up because you're no longer here to recreate or do something similar or whatever. But you know, there's so many brilliant ways. You don't have to just paint, right? You don't just have to you know, draw things, whatever it is. There's so many ways to be creative. And you know, we look around downtown and we look around the arts districts in Oklahoma. You know, there's great ways to create, and it's through metal work and it's through other ways. And you know, being an artist doesn't just have to be the traditional painting way that most people look at it.
Absolutely. And we do have, I mean, when you expand your definition of art, right? Like, everyone knows dance, music, performance. Those are all art forms as well. And even now, there's articles and like media and things that talk about how amazing Oklahoma City is for its art right now. Like, it's one of the top in the country. They are very specifically talking about our music scene and our performance arts, because as a you know, visual artist, and you know, all my peers, we look around and we're like, what the hell are you talking about? Where is it? You know, and it's great. It's all great. You know, the architectural, the things they're doing with like Scissortail, or the, you know, the new the Museum of Art that they're putting in, and but you know, we lost 21C, so there goes, you know, that was a big thing. And then OK Contemporary is awesome, but people around here don't seem to care too much about contemporary art. You know, everyone wants. I mean, they want Western art. They want Santa Fe art. They want. So it's hard to grow. Yeah. And you know, we get tourists coming here. I mean, well, you know, and you read that and you're like, I'm going to move to Oklahoma because it says their art is amazing. And then you come here, and while that may be true with our performance and our music, you're looking around and you're like, I don't see it. You don't see the performance. You don't see the music. Like, you have to seek that out. But you go to a wealthy city, you see the art everywhere. And I'm not saying we don't have, clearly we have public art and we have some murals and we have some stuff, but
I understand
it's not very diverse. For one, that's one of the bigger issues I have with the public art here, is it's not diverse at all. And it's just it's so spread out. There's not like really any. There's no real district that's like, hey, this is our arts district. We have an arts district, and it doesn't feel like an arts district.
No, I think you're right. Obviously, like you see it on the inside, you know, you're part of the community, and you know how to make it
how it can be made worse and how it can be made better from, like, what is it, like the whole, like, it's for us by us, right? Like, you take that ownership and you kind of dive into it, which you have and are doing, which we'll get into in a little bit later. Take me back to your childhood and just kind of how art really kind of inspires you creatively and just kind of leads you down a path, to get to where we are today. But how do you have any kind of defining moments as a kid that you're like, I created this, and maybe something you sold, or anybody that's influential that you look back on?
That's interesting. Like I said, I think, I said everyone's an artist. Some of us just don't grow out of it. I always saw the world a little bit differently. And I really do think that that's like the mark of a true artist, because there is a difference between talent and skill. Talent is something we're born with. It can be surpassed by skill with enough practice if you don't nurture the talent. And I was one of those kids that really rode the talent as far as I could take it. I was lazy. I was naturally gifted. I won every competition I entered in school, both national and local, and it was just so easy. And I thought, I'm great. And then I got to college, so it was really college when I thought, when I learned the difference between talent and skill, right? And I had a professor tell me once that I had more talent in my little finger than he had in his entire body. But if I continued to just, be lazy and milk it, then I would never succeed. I would never grow.
Yeah.
And I really took that seriously, because I also had a high school teacher, which I think my high school teacher is probably the biggest influence in my art career. She really believed in me, but she did it through like tough love. She told me once that probably wasn't gonna make it. It was my senior year, and she was like, "Meh." Yeah. And I was like, what? She gave everyone else some profound speech or whatever, she pulled us all one by one and tell us something, and everyone was like, got something really profound. But for me, she was like, we don't need to waste our time. You're not
one
gonna
of
do
those conversations that like, and those periods in your life where in the moment you're like, what are you talking about? We're clearly at work, but you look back on as an adult now, and you're like, okay, now I
because she knew who I was, right?
Yeah.
I was very cocky. I was young. I was 17, and she knew my personality. She knew that I would do it in spite of her, right? Like I'd be like, "Oh, really? Well, I'll show you."
Yeah.
So I did. So I went to college specifically for that, and which I didn't ever finish. But
what was it?
What, college?
Yeah, no. What do you specifically?
Well, initially I went for computer graphics and video game level design, but I realized very quickly how competitive of a field that was, even back then. And I was the worst in my little class. And I was like, okay, this is like the most competitive field in the world right now, and I can't even like keep up with my small little, community college. So I was like, let's swap majors, and I switched to fine arts because I thought, that's something that is subjective, right? Like I could be really, really bad at art, but as long as I find collectors who have a really bad taste, I'm great, right? So. So I switched majors, and then shortly after switching majors is when I started using the Gunpowder and everything like that. I realized that no one could really teach me that. I was kind of just figuring it all out on my own, and that's when my professor told me the whole talent and skill, speech, and so I dropped out. But it... I'm still really good friends with my high school art teacher. She actually comes to Oklahoma City every year for the Oklahoma City Arts Festival, and she has a booth. And the first time I saw her, I don't know how many years it had been since high school, but the first time I saw her, I ran into her at the booth, and the first thing she said to me was, "Did it work?"
She knew exactly.
She knew exactly what she was doing. So it was, I've done several other magazine articles and interviews and things like that, and I always credit her.
That's awesome. What's her name?
Christy Patterson.
Okay.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's retired now as far as teaching, but yeah, she was wonderful.
Where'd you go to university?
For the brief time that I went, it was just a small little community college in the Panhandle of Oklahoma, actually.
Okay.
So I think OPSU.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Is that how you again? That's like first time coming into Oklahoma, or were you living here at that point?
No, I moved to Oklahoma a little bit in high school because my parents lived here, and I moved here for my senior year. And I finished up my senior year, and my parents were still living here, so I thought I would just go to college somewhere close to them.
Yeah.
And that happened to be just like 15 minutes away from where my parents lived, so I enrolled there. And we can talk all day long about what I think about college, especially as an artist, but
let's dive into the conversation you have with your professor that says, "Hey, you've got way more talent than I could ever have," and you mentioned that's like one of the reasons you dropped out.
Yeah, I had let that society's voice get to me as well. Mm-hmm. That I was, this is not something you could do for a living. Mm-hmm. Like I was going to school to be a teacher. Like that's what I was going to school for. I was going to be a high school art teacher, like my high school art teacher, And in that conversation, he told me very candidly, he was like, of every one of my students that I have in this school right now, you're the only one I see that has the ability to make it professionally, to like do this for a living. And again, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just relaying what he said to me. And it was a wake-up call for me, because it was like, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that was, at that time in my life, I did not believe that was possible. Society had ingrained into me that you cannot be a professional artist unless you're like in that like 1%, like you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth and you have, rich mommies and daddies. And I was very bitter and jaded. And when he told me he thought I could do it, and I was wasting my time, I really took that to heart, and I really thought about it, and then ended up leaving, because at that point I was so far in, and I was so far in debt, and like to this day I do a lot of like mentorship, and I teach AP art seniors and stuff at various private schools and charter schools, and that's one of the things I believe in continuing education. Mm-hmm. Like I think it's very important, but I'm not a strong advocate of like you should just go to college because. And especially if your goal is to go into the art world, like myself, I really don't see a lot of value in it at all, outside of going to one of those very expensive institutes where every one of your peers has rich mommies and daddies, and those are going to be your peers for your career.
You go for connections.
You go for connections.
The actual piece of paper. Who cares about the piece of paper?
Because
they care about your work.
In fact, most of my current peers that are very successful and are making it self-taught. The irony is back then, it was important to have that degree. As an artist, you wanted your MFA, and it got you into the fancier galleries and the different things, and it just made you seem more professional. And it's like the script has flipped, and now it's more impressive to be self-taught and to be like a street artist, or to and so the irony there does not escape me. But you
said that in college, that's kind of where the Gunpowder thing comes in. How does that come about?
When in Rome, I was in the Oklahoma Panhandle. It was everywhere.
So you're just out shooting guns. You think I can use this?
Someone gave me some, and they're like, and I was like, sure, I'll take it. Gunpowder is kind of expensive, so
okay.
I was like, I'll take. I was poor. I was like, I'll take it.
Here's a pot of gunpowder.
Here's free. I was like, cool, and so I remember the first time in my studio, my dad's garage.
Yeah.
I was, I'd light it and I'd be like, what's gonna happen?
Like the trail of it. Run away.
And so it started off with just like little mark making and things like that, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. The reason they gave it to me was because I was painting with fire at the time. Okay. So I was using like torch flames as like various size brushes.
So the effect on whatever the surface that you were burning was technically your like the fire using as like a paintbrush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So
so you're already looking at patterns and visualizing like how a flame, wherever length and forward it is affecting whatever materials on the other side. That's kind of where your headspace was at.
Yeah, it started off without going really far into it, because again, I think we
can go down the rabbit hole. I got time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, because this is my story, so I know I've said this in like a lot of different interviews, but essentially, I was initially an oil painter, so I did like the hyper realism, which I hate that term as well, but that was. That's what I enjoyed, and I was really young. I was, oil painting's really, really tight, really controlled, and so was I. I was very uptight, and so I was like, I need to learn to just kind of let loose a little bit, and so I took a watercolor workshop, which, again, young, stupid me at the time. Had no respect for it whatsoever. I thought it was a child's medium, which it is not. It's quite impressive. But at the time, I was like, I'll do that because it's not a serious medium, and I can just kind of learn to let loose or whatever.
Yeah.
And as I was working on it, I hated it. I hated every moment of it because I learned it was difficult.
Yeah.
And whereas with oil painting, you layer. And it's very tight and controlled. With watercolor, you can't layer too much. The more you layer, the more you muddy it up, and then you get to a point of no return where it's just ruined and you got to throw it away and start over. And at the time, and even in my current work, you see, I prefer portraits, faces. So that's what I was trying to do with the watercolor, and I was working on like the eyes of this particular portrait, and I was at that point where it's like, no return. I'm muddying it up. I've put so many hours into this piece and it's ruined. Like I'm gonna have to throw it away. So I got angry, and again, like I said earlier, my studio was in my dad's garage. So there was like a little propane torch on the work table next to me. I got angry and I took it and I lit it on fire and I threw it across the room because I'm a sane, rational human being.
Of course, yeah. We all have our outfits. I break golf clubs and throw golf clubs. I get it. We have to go through that.
So when I calmed down and I went to go, put the fire out and throw it away, it had landed just perfectly up against the wall where, she was on fire, and, I was working on the eyes. So it looked like she was crying. It was still wet and running, and her mascara and her makeup had been running, and it was in that moment that I realized that it wasn't realistic imagery that I was wanting to pursue anymore. It was realistic emotion.
Okay.
So I didn't care about hyper-realism in the form of, visual. I wanted it to hit you right in here and this be hyper-real. So I was like, that's perfect. And I put the fire out and everything. And I loved the way that the fire, added these certain effects and the things. So I don't know how long I started working in watercolor and fire. I started experimenting, and I'd do a watercolor piece and then I'd burn it and mess it up on purpose. And
was the watercolor
like the oil stuff you were painting with flammable, or was it the canvas pan?
It was like 300-pound watercolor
Okay.
paper, so the paper was flammable at the time. And I did that for a while, and then eventually I did away with the watercolor entirely because I was more intrigued by the fire.
Yeah.
And started experimenting more and more with just painting with my torch flames. And then in doing that, that's when someone was like, hey, we got this gunpowder. You want to play with that a little bit? And so I was like, sure.
So that it obviously makes sense then that somebody comes over and is like, hey, I see what you're doing with fire. Here's a pot of dust that blows up that people call gunpowder.
Yeah.
Had you ever seen or used gunpowder before?
No, that's why I was like,
Yeah. It's like such a Western, old school Western, like cowboy thing. Right?
Yeah,
Like, it's not like today's modern world. You're like, oh, here's a 200 rounds at 9mm instead. Like that's kind of, here's gunpowder.
Yeah, people just loading their own.
Right.
So I had never played with it. I didn't know what it was going to do. In my head, I was like, it's going to be a bomb. It's going to explode,
Blow up my house and my dad's going to be pissed.
So, I started playing around with that more, and then I got the gunpowder and played around with that. And, back then we did have, we did have internet. It wasn't the dark ages, but it wasn't, this amazing everything at your fingertips that it is today.
Yeah.
So when I would research and Google, or I think it was Yahoo, I would Yahoo.
So you're talking probably early 2000s.
Yeah. And I would look up like, what do we, gunpowder and art and this and that. And the only thing that I came across was there was another artist, a Chinese artist who, his name's Kai, and he's been doing it for a very long time, but he focused more on performance arts, like public outdoor performance arts, and like large scale things. Like his things were very like he used like stencils and stuff like that, and create these landscapes and cityscapes and stuff. And he's quite famous. He's in like all the big museums, and I thought that's really cool.
Yeah.
At this point, I had been already using it as art, but seeing someone else like doing something cool like that, I was like, okay, that's cool. And that's when I decided I wanted to take that medium and I wanted to perfect it. I wanted to learn how to use this to create like the portraits that I was doing with my oil painting, right? Like, how can I control it to a point that it's a full on. It's not some abstract cityscape,
Yeah. Or stencil. This
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was years of just experimenting and practicing and mark making and doing different things. And but I remember researching gunpowder. Researching fire art, gunpowder. When I look up fire art, it was always like pyrography. It was like the wood burning and stuff like that. No one was doing what I was doing, which it was like fire, torch flames and like smoke. Like I would use like smoke from soot, candles and old tiki torches and things like that. And now, because like I said, the internet's so much different, social media and the world's a smaller place. I've come across other artists, and I'm not naive enough to say that they're copycats or mimicking me or anything, because surely they were out there before. But it's just interesting. It's cool that I can see other artists starting to utilize these same things I've been doing for decades. And it's neat because I can reach out to them and we can kind of discuss. And that was really difficult early on because that's part of why I dropped out of college, right? Like there was no one to talk to about this and how do I, it was all just trial and error and experimenting. And
when you started experimenting and doing all this stuff, are you starting to like sell and make money all the way through your college career and all that as well, like high school and college, or when does that when does that start to you like, oh, I sold my piece, like this is,
Yeah, no, I was always selling, doing something, but it was early on. It was very amateur. It was very, again, figuring all that out. There was a lot of misinformation there. I was basing everything that I knew as a young artist off of, like I said, what society had kind of instilled into me and into themselves, what all of society kind of believed. And And
are you traveling around going to art shows as well, and like going like you mentioned Oklahoma City Art Show?
A little bit. I never did like really big things like that. No. Again, I was a very, very broke artist, and I focused very early on the relationship building. So like I knew, my job background was like sales. Like everything I ever did was sales, because that again was something that came naturally to me. My son says I'm a yapper, right?
Yeah.
So I did like roofing sales, and I did car sales, and I did all the different kinds of sales jobs, and
keeping the dream alive.
yeah. So I knew, but to that nature, like I always thought that I could never call myself an artist until I was doing it full time, because I felt like it was a title that you have to earn, like truly earn. Like I said, everyone's born an artist, and you can like deep down inside you can be an artist because that's who you were born to be, and then you see the world differently. But like professionally, to say, hey, I'm an artist, you have to earn it.
Yeah, you're solely making money from your art.
Yeah, you don't see surgeons and they're like, I'm a surgeon, but on the weekends I bartend down it,
Right.
So, well, then you're not a surgeon, right? So I felt like I had to earn that title. And so I was doing these sales things, and then I realized I was like, I'm kind of tired of making other people money. I'm like seeing the difference of like, how much money I'm making with my sales for these companies. And I'm like, I'd just rather, cause I was young, and I thought galleries. Like that's everyone I knew was like, that's how you make it as an artist. Like you need to get into the big galleries, and you want gallery representation, you want exclusive representation. There's all these things. And maybe back then it was more true, because again, the world was smaller, and it was more about like so I focused so heavily on trying to get into galleries, and it was awful. It was so awful. It's funny. It's funny, the evolution of an artist's career, where like what you prioritize and what you think is important and what you value, and then as you get older, you start to realize like none of that crap even matters, and in fact, it's the opposite. Like it kind of hinders. Like there was a time in my career where I pulled from every gallery I was in, because I was like, I can do better than my galleries. Like I can sell myself better than they can. And when the galleries have 15 to 30 plus other artists they're representing, they're not giving you their full attention. And then when they do sell something of yours, they're taking their percentage, and then they're probably already lowering your prices to fit their market, which makes it difficult to be in multiple galleries, because everyone's economy is different, and it sucks for collectors. And so if you're doing that, then you're always kind of standing in your own way. You're always keeping yourself at this like sub 4-figure price range, and yeah, so like it was a lot of, I try and do things, and like I remember people and friends that had like restaurants or business offices or stuff, like you can show a MySpace, and you can just put your stuff up, and it'll be on consignment, or it'll be exposure, and it'll be all this stuff, which is something I hate, and I don't blame them. I don't think they're trying to take advantage of artists or anything like that. Again, I think it's part of that whole societal misinformation through we've had for decades, where they think that that's just how you're supposed to do it, and that they think they are doing you a favor as an artist, and they're like, oh yeah, you can show up MySpace and do a consignment, do this, whatever. But again, it's the opposite. I think there is a place and time for an artist in his career to do that, to kind of experiment with what they're doing, and to kind of start getting out there a little bit and doing things. But it's very, very early on. Outside of that, it's no one's walking into a restaurant or an office building or anything wanting to drop a ton of money on art. So I mean, hell, even if you're selling it for $200, like if I'm going to buy a steak, I'm not really looking to spend $200
it's not on your radar.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just not, it's not ideal. And then you are, kind of keeping it, because what are you going to do? You're going to go in there and you're going to say, hey, this is a $10,000 piece of art at the steakhouse. Like, first of all, if I did have $10,000, I'm not buying art from a steakhouse.
Yeah.
So
there's so many different, like, you think, I mean, I get it. There's so many different ways that society looks at it, right? Or the business owner looks at it, and they're thinking, trying to tie it in, and some of them are trying to just be really nice and give.
Yeah, they are trying to help,
but it's back to like the education and the stigma around. That's just how it's been done for so many years, and you're gonna, sometimes, like I said, it just doesn't help at all, unless you need storage space. You're like, yeah, I'll hang it because you're doing me a favor.
Yeah.
But
and that's the with the doing the favor. You need to step back and realize who's actually doing who the favor, right? Because really, if you're a business and you say, hey, you can hang all your art on my walls, they're doing you a favor because they're saving you a ton of money on decor.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to go buy art for your walls or things like that because you're letting the artist do it all for you.
While enjoying it.
And you're doing it on consignment. So like when they sell, you're going to take some money from it too.
Yeah.
Like you should be paying them to lease their art, right?
Yeah.
And so there's just, there's got to be a shift in the way people think about how this works. And again, back to what we were talking about earlier, a shift in realizing how important artists actually are. And take it seriously because if a plumber or an electrician goes into your home and they do work for you, you'll pay them. And if you don't pay them, they'll bill you and they'll add on interest and all this stuff, or with liens, or they'll do the thing. But artists don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? And people will take advantage of artists all the time. They'll just ghost them, or they'll pay them half and then not the other half, or there's just so many different things. It's just not, and they don't care because it's not serious. It's just an artist.
Yeah.
And again, this is not the rule, right? Like there are plenty of good people out there, and clearly the world knows art is important. There are other cities and states and countries that really value art, and it thrives, and they're very wealthy artists. And but if we're very specifically talking about locally, it's real behind.
Yeah. Tell me about obviously the Gunpowder thing starts. You have this kind of eureka moment, and you're diving into all that stuff. When do you stop selling, working other jobs, and think, I'm going all in on my art? Is that when you move to Oklahoma City? Like what time of your life does this happen? And you're thinking, like, I am an artist now. Like, and like in your words, like, you feel like you kind of earned that.
Well, again, when I earned it whenever that was my full-time career, and it was supporting my family.
Yeah.
Artist is, again, when you expand your definition of creativity and like what is an artist, that's actually that is an interesting topic, because I was working with the Gunpowder and I was doing all that in Denver. It got too expensive to live, so we moved.
Is the Gunpowder more expensive in Denver than it is here?
No, it wasn't.
Cost of living.
It's definitely the cost of living.
Yeah.
In fact, for a long time, Gunpowder was expensive because I was a broke, college student, but it was actually quite cheap. One of the reasons I did is because it was so much cheaper than oil paint, right?
Yeah.
But then 2020 happened, and once prices go up, they're not bringing them back down, so they got really expensive. They stopped selling gunpowder because they needed everything they could to keep up with the ammunition demand. And when they did start bringing gunpowder back, it had more than doubled in price. So we moved, and I said we were in Denver before here. There was actually a very brief stint in Phoenix, Arizona. Like we moved there and then moved here, like right after. But while we were in Phoenix, we were in a small apartment, and I didn't have a studio, and I didn't have a backyard or anywhere to work with what I was doing. So I didn't know what to do with my career. I actually ended up not doing art for a while and went back to sales. I was doing pest control sales, and and that it was miserable. Again, kind of ate at my soul. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure something out. And I, out of necessity, I put together a little desk in the corner of my apartment and started doing art for a card game called Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
And that started off pretty slow for about the first week. I remember the first card that I did that I sold for like $100. I was like, that's awesome. Like that was the most money I'd ever,
Yeah.
And then that took off. That actually just kind of took off really, really fast, like faster than I could handle. My prices were really, really cheap and affordable, which I thought they were great, but I couldn't keep up with the demand, and those prices didn't make sense. I was like, I woke up like after that first week, and my inbox had over 400 messages of like people wanting to hire me to do these cards, and I was like, holy crap. So I started doing that, and then I started like raising my prices, and I came up with like a business model to, keep raising my prices until people stopped paying them, and then people never stopped paying them. And
This is great, but I'm working my ass off.
It was. So it was a weird thing, and I definitely learned from it. And it's great because I could pass that knowledge down onto others who wanted, later on down the road. But like, I got to a point where I raised my prices so much that it was literally 10 times what I had started. And it was a fraction of the work, so I could work, 4 hours a week and make way more than I was making working 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so I was doing these cards, and that really took off in a really big way. And I kind of, and I joke with my wife, I'm really important in unimportant circles. It's such a niche.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how you say that word. Market, or even community. It's, Magic the Gathering is a very small community in the nerd world. And then in that community, there's even the smaller community of like the art that I was doing. And, but in that community, I became, kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Like Ron Burgundy would say.
What gave you the idea to start doing those cards? Like, did you play the game?
Yeah.
How do you get the word out as well?
So I grew up playing the game. I'd been playing it since I was like 7, 8 years old. I loved it. I'm, quite nerdy myself, and it was just, that was my thing. It's like Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering. Some friends had asked me if I would do this for their cards, and I was like, nah, that's stupid. But then again, like out of necessity, because I didn't know what else to do, I was like, all right, I'll do it for you. And then I posted them on Facebook. And that's, there was, at the time, that's when Facebook was like really awesome. It wasn't just for old people.
In their specific groups.
There was groups for things. And so I posted it, and then one of my friends who I did it for posted in one of those groups, which had, a couple 100,000 people. And then I woke up and my inbox was like,
awesome. What did you think when you wake up that morning? You're like, babe.
I remember somebody, one of the first card I sold for 100, he messaged me. And he said he was a collector, and he's like, I hire a lot of artists to do these for my cards. He's like, I will pay you $100 to do this specific card. And that card at the time was like a $200 card. And so I was like, he's trusting me on this really expensive card, and he's going to pay me the most I've made on these. Right. So I was like, absolutely, let's do it. And then when he posted, because I guess he was apparently one of the bigger collectors, that's when it was like, it kind of ran off. Yeah. And
obviously helps him, the skyrocket.
Yeah, no, it skyrocketed by the time at the height of my career in that, which I've more or less semi-retired from, because, and we're getting to your answer, like, when did I know full time is like the Gunpowder art and the galleries? So like, this is a long-winded, like, but at the height of that career, I was selling each individual piece for $4,000 a piece.
Little card. Do they look like playing cards?
Yeah, they're the size of playing cards, and I was $4,000 a piece, kind of flat rate, with like, there was a priority fee if you wanted to skip the line, because I had a 2-year backlog. I was selling cards to, I'm not the only artistic, creative person who likes nerdy stuff. Cassius Marsh played for the Seahawks. Post Malone. I know I'm name dropping right now, but like,
do it all. People need to know this stuff.
Post Malone. There's a lot of celebrities who like Magic the Gathering, and I started doing commissions for all of them, you know. I made some of my really good friends through doing that are, you know, celebrities in the, you know, in LA and things like that. And it was just weird that because here I am, and this is to answer your question, like, when did I know I was like an artist?
Yeah.
Even through all of that, I never considered myself an artist because of the damage, the brainwashing that society had done to me my whole life. I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
I felt like here I am in my little studio apartment in a corner doing nerdy art on a card game instead of my dream, my passion. Like, I'm not in a big fancy gallery. I'm not in a museum. You know, I'm not.
The rest of the world would define
as a successful artist, right? Yeah. And so I had this imposter syndrome major, and I was just like, I felt so bad about myself, and I was doing it. I kind of hated what I was doing, but I mean, I that's it. I quit my job. Like, I was only doing the cards. Like, I was full time creating these cards, making more money than like I'd ever made.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did that for almost a decade. I did that. Like I said, at the height of it, that's when it really started to become such a thing. And then there was a time I spoke to one of my peers, one of my friends who was an artist in Denver. He was very successful. He was in the galleries. He did all this stuff. And he kind of my mentor a little bit. I really respect him, look up to him. And he told me one day over the phone, he said, you realize you're in the 1%. Like, you're doing what every artist wishes they could do. You're making a living on your art, supporting your family off of your single income. Like, what are you doing? And at this point, we had already moved here. We were here now, and my wife had kind of retired from the medical field for a little bit, and I was, you know, because I had gotten to that point where I was like, hey, you can take a break. I'm making enough money on my art that I can do this, and you can take a break. You can focus on like your career, your business. That, you know, she wanted to build her business and
raise the kids, the whole thing. Yeah.
And I had never been able to say that before. You know, she had worked her ass off, and she was kind of the breadwinner. Like, she brought in all the money, and I was this broke artist that was just trying everything I could, and I would have little sales jobs here and there that made peanuts, and must have been very frustrating for her. And I was still feeling like a failure. Like, I'm providing for my entire family off of this. I'm making, you know, again, it was a lot. And
and you have both kids at this point?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I just felt so bad about myself. And he told me, he was like, you need to just kind of reevaluate here.
Who
like,
was that?
His name is Michael Dowling.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. Because I had, at the time, you know, I'd lived here. I had a really big, beautiful studio. You've seen my studio. It's heart of downtown. Most artists would give their left arm to have that studio.
I don't think you don't have to be an artist. Anybody would give that. Like, it's such a sick spot.
10 years ago, you would have told me, you showed me that space, and I too would have given my left arm for it. And I was at a point in my career where I would just go in, and it's just like another day at the office. I got to go in. Like, I was dreading going in. I hated what I was doing, and so that helped me kind of reevaluate things a little bit more, and I started shifting focus to, I was like, okay, I want to start making my larger art again. I have this big studio where I can do it.
Turn the fire alarms off.
No, there are no fire alarms. And
lighting stuff on fire.
Yeah, and but the problem I was running into was that I was, like I said, I had a 2-year backlog on the cards. I didn't have time to really work on anything for myself. I was at that point 100% commission based. Like, everything I was working on was already sold and needed to be shipped off as soon as possible. And so I would, you know, here and there, when I would get an opportunity, I would work on a little something. You know, it'd take me weeks or months to work on one single piece. And there was at one point a friend had asked to use my studio to do a show. He wanted to do a solo show at my studio, kind of an underground warehouse vibe. And I was like, yeah, sure, you know. And he had asked me to do a performance, because when I was in Denver, I would and working with the Gunpowder and everything like that, you know, it lends itself to this, you know, to performance.
Yeah,
and,
it's really cool.
And so that actually was where, you know, I had kind of taken that, and I hadn't done it in years since this was post COVID, by the way.
Yeah.
So, you know, after COVID, I stopped traveling and doing performances and doing all this stuff like that. I was just kind of keeping my head down in my studio, and he was like, hey, you know, I want to do this thing. Will you do a performance and also like show with me? And I was like, I have like 3 pieces. And I told him no. But then my sister called me and said she was going to be in town that weekend. And I had realized she had never seen one of my performances in person. And I thought that'd be really neat. That'd be really neat to show her. Plus, I, you know, selfishly was trying to convince her to move here.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to show her how cool it is here, you know. So I called up my friend. I was like, I'll do the performance. I'll do the thing. And I didn't really. I wasn't really prepared. I didn't really think about like what that meant. And so when I did the performance, there was a lot of people there. He was kind of plugged into the art world, and so there was a lot of. I did my big debut, and it was kind of like the card thing. It just really fast. It was like everyone in the art scene here in the city kind of knew who I was. Maybe not my name, but they're like, "Oh, you're the Gunpowder guy, right?" Yeah. And people were sharing it on social media, and then I started doing a lot more underground shows at the space, doing more performances and doing these different things, and I was like, this is cool because I can make money, you know, kind of doing that. But I wasn't really making money because I wasn't really charging for like tickets or anything. So I realized that's not, I don't have time for this. Like, right. I'm saying yes to too many things, and I'm not a venue. Like, this is my studio. I need to get back to work. And then there's like a series of events, like I said, saying yes to too many things, and without getting like, you know, too personal and deep here, I realized that something needed to change. I looked back one day and I was like, this isn't where I want my career to be at all. Like, sure, I may be focusing on something that's not these cards anymore entirely, but this isn't great either. Yeah. And I found myself dealing with like the wrong crowds and the wrong clientele, and just like my career wasn't really going anywhere. And I decided I needed to take a break and focus on my mental health, focus on my marriage and my family. And this was recently. This was probably 23. Okay. It was around my birthday, around May, and so I thought, okay, I'm gonna stop. You know, I prayed about it, and I was just like, if this is where it ends, like if this is where my career ends, and like I lose this big beautiful studio, and I lose the clients and the collectors, and that's fine. Like I know how to play that game. I spent my whole life broke without all that. I can go back to that, no problem. But I can't lose myself, and I can't lose my family. Yeah. And I need to get back to what really matters. And so I quit working. And from May until November, I didn't do anything as far as, you know, art related, like career. Mm-hmm. And the irony was that was actually the first year in my career that I broke 6 figures. Wow. That was the year that I, like, everything just kind of fell into place. That was the year that my gallery contacted me. They contacted me in November, which is why I stopped. I said May to November. That's why I stopped, because from November to January was nonstop. I created a whole new body of work, like over 60 pieces within that short period of time that I created out and shipped and traveled. And that's when I realized this is it. This is full time. I'm doing what I've always wanted to do.
You realize that that's like you could take 6 months off and still like break six figures and things kind of fall into place, but it doesn't. You mentioned faith, and I know faith's a huge part of your life, and especially that time and taking that time away must have really kind of been heavy on you as well, right? You kind of put your priorities in order, and you're like, all these people I'm around and all this potential money I'm making, it's my career, but also you're looking at your family and your kids and the life, and you probably think of that kid in your dad's garage, like back in the day, like, I don't want to be doing this. Like, where do I want to be? What is like success in my eyes?
Yeah, well, it's his timing, not ours. Yeah. Right. And there's, this concept of grace, we can't, nothing I'm doing is of my own doing, right? Like all of my successes, all of my gifts, back to the talent, right? This everything that I have, the success that I've had, that was through this talent that was given to me by God, right? Yeah. So I always knew that was my path. Like I knew that I needed to pursue this, because I don't believe we're given gifts to not use them. Yeah. And I also knew that it's our job to spread the word and to share, and I was given a very specific gift that's unique in the way of it has the ability, the potential to reach lots of people, not just globally, right? But like through time as well, right? So like long after I'm gone, it's not just it goes in all directions. And so I looked at what I was doing, and I said, I was wrong crowds, wrong clients, saying yes to all these things. Every bit of success, every bit of everything I was doing with my career, all the advancements and all of everything, I was trying to control and take credit for. Like I'm successful. I did this. I'm responsible for my success, and I lost sight of where that was really coming from. And the irony there was, because I was trying to do everything on my own, like it wasn't really working. And when I stepped back and I gave it, I gave it all up, and I was like, what, if I fail, like it's whatever, but like I know you'll provide, you always have, whatever that looks like. It doesn't necessarily mean a Lamborghini in my driveway, but like we'll be okay, because I need to focus on what really matters, and provide he did. Like I said, I was doing my taxes, and I was looking at the numbers that I brought in from just like, different commissions and sales and different things. And I started adding it all. I was like, holy crap, like that's more than I've ever made. And I didn't work. I didn't do anything. And then the gallery contacted me. We started talking, and that just kind of worked out too. It was, that was such a cool experience. And then a couple months later, I'm in Beverly Hills. I'm on Rodeo Drive, and I'm showing right next to Salvador Dali, and it was just like it was so surreal, And I still, it doesn't ever go away, that imposter syndrome, by the way, right? Like here I am, I was providing for my family with these little cards, and I'm thinking that's not a real artist. And now I'm like on Rodeo Drive next to Salvador Dali, and I'm like, it's Sesame Street, right? Like one of these things just doesn't belong
There's
here.
levels. There's always levels. Right? Yeah.
And I promise you, the thing that doesn't belong is not Dali. So I'm, I'm very blessed, and I know that, when I look at my big, huge studio now, and I look at my career and the success that I have, and when I look at my beautiful wife and my children, I used to be so proud of my accomplishments, and proud to be able to look at my teacher and be like, I'll show you, I did it. I did it. Just, I didn't do anything. I'm very, very lucky. And I think that a big part of that is acknowledging and realizing that it's not my own doing, and then stewarding those gifts and success, well. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, shout out to your wife, right, for believing in you, and sticking everything out, and then, like I said, working, and then, things happen, right? Like it's. But also, regardless if you're a creator, an entrepreneur, whatever it is, like you need that home base, and you need that what's the right word for it? That stable home base to let you do what you do. If that doesn't put you in a good creative space, if home life sucks, right, and your kids are screaming at you, and your wife's pissed off because you're not making any money, but you guys have been through a lot, and you've been stuck together, and you get to where you're at today, and you're like. Yeah, like we're rock solid because with the things we've been through, and she's had her time off, you've had your time off. Like, it's awesome to see, and I got to know both of you a little bit, and it's been really cool to see, and diving into your story and learning about it. Like, it doesn't surprise me one bit. Now that I know you, just the way that you are together, it's really cool. The gallery phone call that happens. Well, tell me a little bit about kind of that process of. You said you were busy from November to January building a whole new body of work, and then that goes into a gallery in LA next to Salvador Dali. Like, how was that body of work? What was the creative side behind that?
So it was interesting. It was different from the way I normally work. So again, at that point in time, I had up to that point, when I decided to just take a step back and stop working, I was working on the cards. I was doing that. So when I stepped away from that, and I had to cut, I had to cut a lot of ties, and honestly, I burned a lot of bridges in that community. But,
the card community?
Yeah.
Okay.
But mental health is really important.
Well, yeah.
And so I was just like, it's whatever, like it'll work out. And so up until that time, that's what I was working on. I hadn't really worked on a larger piece in a while. And in fact, I think at that point I had a piece on my easel that had been there for like 6 months. That was like a quarter of the way finished. And when he told me, he's like, I think it was like 40 pieces or something like that. And then, so I mean, obviously I filled out those with like some abstracts because I can do those pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But he wanted at least half of those to be like figuratives. And then he told me, he's like, I'll just do them various sizes, various smaller accessible sizes, and then like one big wow piece. Okay. I was like, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And I was like, what, like, give me some examples of like, your various small sizes. Like what do you think, the space will accommodate? Yeah. And like, what do you usually see and have? And when he gave me the dimensions of his various small pieces, and those dimensions were a little bit larger than the largest piece I had done to date, I was like,
what people define as small is a little different.
I was like, so what's a wow piece then? So I was like, okay. So I shifted, and I spent, like I said, the next month and a half, 2 months, just nonstop creating. And like I said, it was different than my normal process, because normally I take something and I really think about it, and there's a whole thing. But fortunately, over the years of working on the cards and not having time to work on my larger stuff, I had, come up with lots of inspirations and ideas and things that I had written down, and I had like a bunch of titles and a bunch of concepts and these different things. I had accumulated a bunch of reference materials and photos of models and things like that I had done over the years that I just never could act on or do anything. I just knew one day like I wanted to create this piece, or I wanted to create this piece. So I had a backlog. I didn't have 40, but I had quite a bit. And when I started kind of sitting down looking at them, I realized, okay, there's kind of a theme here. I'm kind of do something with this, but not really. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do a theme. Like it's not a solo show or anything. I'm not going to be like, this is all based off of this one. I was like, I'll just create, each one will be its own kind of standalone piece, whatever I want to create. And then I'll tie them together, because of like everything I create is kind of based on the human condition anyway. So it worked. But I was fast, the gallery, I wouldn't say a stipulation, but one of the things he said was like he wanted to learn how prolific I was, like, successful. Historically speaking, the artists that they bring on that are successful are the ones who can create a lot of work really fast, be really quick. And so I did. So I created all these pieces. I went fast, and bunch of figurative pieces, did some things I'd never really done before, added more color into my work in some of them. He did prompt me, he wanted me to do like 2 celebrity portraits to kind of see what my take on that would be, because I guess those are very popular there.
It's Hollywood, right?
Yeah. And so I think I just kind of it was fun because I got to do what I wanted to do, which I hadn't done in a very long time. I'd been, not really, like there was at that height of my career in the cards, like I had gotten to a point where I was just doing what I wanted to do. Like clients didn't come to me and be like, I want you to paint this very specific thing for my card. It was like, I want you to do a card for me, and I would get to do whatever I wanted to do. Because I had developed my own very specific style and everything, and that's what they came to me for. But that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on my big projects, on my larger paintings and the Gunpowder, and I had these things that I wanted to create, and so I finally got to do that. So it was fun. I got to just do what I wanted to do, and there were nights I was, again, I don't, shout out to my wife for putting up with it, but like there were nights I was there till 4 a.m, like just trying to get them all done. And
is that one of your kind of proudest, like as a career, as an artist, like proudest, like that those 40 pieces, to just the whole process of like, hey, I need these in this size, and I need, just that whole, like, as a package, that, and not just the art in general, but just like the entire, from phone call to getting them in that studio, was that something you're super proud of?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if proud of is the, going back to the whole, like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do it. I have nothing to be proud of.
Yeah.
I think the part that I was most proud of was that I don't know if proud is the word. I was very excited to be there. I was very grateful to be there, and it's probably one of the things that I'm most grateful for, is because it was validation, for decades for a lifetime of pursuing this career, and having that imposter syndrome and not believing that I could do it, and society not believing that you could be a professional artist and do this, especially, and so yes, no, not proud, but grateful.
Okay.
And yeah, the day that I showed up and walked up the steps of Rodeo Drive and walked into the gallery, and I saw Salvador Dali and I saw all that stuff like that. That's when it really hit me, like, because clearly by then I knew I was in the gallery. I knew it was on Rodeo Drive. Like, I knew that it was prestigious and it was this blue chip gallery, and like, I knew all that. But I'd actually never been to LA before. And I'd never been to Beverly Hills. I've seen it on Beverly Hills Cop, you know, but I didn't realize how big of a deal it was. And so, yeah, it was very, very surreal, and I was very, very grateful to be there. And still am, you know, and then, you know, that's led to so many things in my career, just being there. You know, it's absolutely crazy, like, what just being in that gallery has done for my career. Not even like sales and, you know, financial success or anything like that. It's the opportunities, the doors that have opened, the relationships that I've built. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like I said, it's on his time, right? And if this had happened earlier in your career, maybe you never know what happens, and you know, all the things, right? It's really cool. And finishing out, I want to talk, because you touched on it earlier, which kind of would have been perfect to lead into it, but I asked you a different question. You talked about being a steward of the art and being a steward of your skill, talent that's been given to you, which leads perfectly into what you're doing now, which you have a foundation.
Yes.
Which is based in downtown Oklahoma City, on Broadway, which is very new, very recent, that we're kind of catching you at this time. Excited to look back on this in 10, 15 years and see what the foundation has done and is where it's at. But as far as today is concerned, what can you tell us about the Sage Art Foundation?
Yeah, well, like you said, what we were talking about, you know, his timing, not ours. When we talk about timing, you know, and what the gallery has done for me, that you know, just being there. So I get into the gallery. I've been there for, you know, coming up on almost a year now. And in that time that I've been at the gallery, it was, you know, the presidential election, into holidays, into everything's on fire.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not been the best time for art sales, you know, just globally, but especially there, because it's all on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally the guy from the meme that's, you know, everything's on fire, and he's like, this is fine.
This is fine, everything's fine.
But you know, but with the timing of all that, because, you know, if it was going really well, like, I was supposed to be there in January and February doing shows. That was scheduled, that was on, you know, on the calendar, and I was going to be there, and like, there was this whole thing. I wouldn't have had time for this, what I'm doing now with the nonprofit. And because of that slowing down, I'm able to kind of dedicate all of my time and focus and energy on this, which is, the Sage Arts Foundation. We'll be opening soon. Our website will be up really soon. We've already done, you know, all the important stuff. You know, we've got the 501c3 status, and the, you know, our board,
all the
members.
Things,
But that really stemmed from, that's a funny story. That stemmed from, I was meeting with what is, you know, who is my business partner now. I was meeting with her to discuss a potential commission, a potential sale. And then just, you know, one thing kind of led to another. And instead of walking out with a nice check in my pocket, we walked out with a big responsibility instead. And it all stems from, you know, it's something that, you know, like you said, stewarding the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience that I have. It's something that I've had kind of on the back of my mind that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I just didn't have the means. I didn't have the resources. It wasn't something I could do all on my own. And that is, I moved here. It comes from my personal experience as an artist moving here to Oklahoma City. And like I said earlier in the interview, like it's really behind. There's a massive lack of resources for artists here in the city. And people might argue with you or say, well, there's OVAC and there's Allied Arts and there's these things that they're doing. It's like, sure. But in reality, for those of us who are actual artists who need those resources, not people in suits that are, on boards and looking at the numbers and for those of us who actually need the resources, we're not getting them. They're not there. And for the ones who are getting the resources, again, I talked on earlier, the art's not very diverse here. It's going to the same 4 or 5 artists over and over. Go around, look at our murals in town, and I promise you, half of them are going to be from the same artist, right?
Yeah.
And that's not their fault.
Right.
That's not a problem. I don't care about that.
Yeah, if you're an artist and someone's going to give you money to go do a commission, you're going to say yes.
And if you're going to, and if you're going to follow through and you're going to complete that public art project, whereas many artists would not, then of course the city and the grant writers and the things are going to want to keep hiring you and giving you more work because you'll get it done. More my issue comes in is that's happening because those resources are not really accessible to many artists. Like, let's say, as an artist, and again, I moved to the city 8 years ago now, and when I came here, I did what every artist would do. I went to Google and I researched and I called around and I was like, where's the art district here? Don't get me started on the art district here. It's there's the galleries. Everything's very gate kept. It's very old, and I'm looking up, where's gallery space? Not really. Where's studio space to rent? Not really. Okay, well, where's is there a co-op space? No, there's not. Okay, well, is there any sort of mentorship or entrepreneur programs or anything that I can do to kind of? No, not really. Okay, well, what about grants? Yeah, there's grants. Cool. All right. Well, what do I do with? Okay, cool. OVAC. Where are the grants? Well, here's a little thumb drive that has a list of all the resources available to artists in Oklahoma. Not just Oklahoma, all of Oklahoma. I was like, cool. What do I do with that? What do I do with this thumb drive of information? Okay. If I'm a go-getter, I'm going to do my research and I'm going to follow up and I'm going to do calls and I'm going to do these things. Most artists, not so much.
Yeah, the creative side isn't very business savvy.
But if I am,
in general,
right? If I am like those 4 or 5 artists who are getting all the grants, like, okay, cool, I'm going to call that up and I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to realize that, Allied Arts, brings in millions of dollars a year on, donations and charity and stuff, and they can get all these grants and do all these things, and they do a fantastic job. So let's get one of those grants. Okay. Chances of me getting that grant, as we talked about just a minute ago, probably not very high. It's probably going to go to someone who's already done it before as opposed to me who's never done one. But let's say I do get it. Some miracle, I do a great job at figuring out how to write my grant or whatever. And I get that grant. It's a public art project. It's more money than I've ever, made on a thing I've been selling out of the trunk of my car or in a restaurant. Or what have I just done? What did I do? Because I don't have a studio space because there's none available. Yeah. I'm working in a garage or my apartment or my kitchen. If I am in a studio space, they're very few and far between, I can't, they're not big. I'm not going to be able to create a large public art project. You know who can? The artist who has his warehouse that has been doing them for every single project. I can't do that. Okay, well, maybe I'll outsource it. Maybe I will look up resources on how I can find people to help me build this or where I can find a space. They don't exist. Yeah. They're not there. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then I fail And then that reinforces them to give them to the other artists over and over again and not take chances.
Right.
And this is the cycle. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is correct me if I'm wrong, this is the capital, right? This is the capital city.
Yeah.
Tulsa's kicking our ass. Like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I know people argue like, well, we stole it from Tulsa. Tulsa's supposed to, I don't care about any of that. What I care about is that this is our capital.
It's a fact.
I live here.
Yeah.
And you can't look around and see that there's arts here. Like, our city survives because of the thunder, not because of our art.
Yeah.
And as soon as the thunder decides to leave, we got nothing to fall back on.
To be rioting in the streets,
right? But if we
leave, but yeah.
right, but my point is like we got to be self-sufficient, and there are a lot of artists here, great artists, and more than that, there's a lot of money here, a lot of money. Stop buying everywhere else.
Yeah.
Buy local. Local does not equal cheap.
Yeah.
And I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm on Rodeo Drive. I'm in Beverly Hills. I sell my work for 5-6 figures. How many local clients do you think I have?
Yeah.
Right? It's ridiculous. Plenty who can afford it.
Yeah.
Plenty who do buy art.
Yeah. And personally for you, you'd much rather sell to someone who's in your city that you can go see.
And when I did finally start selling here locally, by the way, it was only because I was in Beverly Hills, because I'm not local art anymore, right? Local does not equal cheap, and that is a mindset problem. And so the foundation that I've created, the Sage Arts Creative Foundation, it's a big swing. Yeah. Like I'm taking a really large bite, because it started off as just a simple concept of, I'm going to create an art co-op space. A physical location for artists to be able to come and work, pay a small membership fee, and have access to, a studio and creative environment. Yeah. And then as I started, we started building it, and I started looking into, resources and what needed to be offered. And we came into this with this idea of like, we won't step on toes. Like, if there's already an organization or a company or somebody out there doing this thing, right, whether it's successful or not, we're not going to do that thing. We're not going to take it over and compete, right? Because you said at the very, very beginning of our interview that artists are competitive. Yeah. And that shouldn't be true. Okay. Most, again, back to the societal brainwashing, like most artists believe that if I'm successful, I'm taking from you. You're right. There's some finite amount of wealth and money out there for art, when that's just simply not true. Yeah. Now, when it comes to, as I'm learning, when it comes to like grants and things like that, then you're competing. But when it comes to actual selling, like success and selling, and like we should be lifting each other up, not competing with each other and being like, oh, I need to get all the, like, I'm getting all, for instance, I'm getting all the public art projects. I can't really share with you how I did the grant writing, because then you might get some and then I won't. Like, there's plenty to go around. Like, build it up, right? I want to come alongside these other organizations, these other things that are doing stuff, and I want to kind of partner with, or have these meetings with them, be like, what do you think you're doing well? What do you think you're not doing so well? What can you let us take off your plate,
right?
Or
fill the need,
right? Or what can we come in and, like, what kind of support do you need that we can give you to help you succeed in this thing that you're doing? And so it kind of led into that, like having meetings with these different organizations and things like that. Like we had a meeting with OK Contemporary, and we're going to be partnering with them on some things. And we've had our meetings with OVAC, we've had our meetings with Allied Arts, and we've been had a meeting with Art Space. So like there's plenty of organizations out there that have been trying to do things, and I hit the mic. But it's not enough. And I'm not saying that they're not doing great. I'm not saying that they are, but it's just not enough. And it's because of the same issues that I had, which is why I never did this before, was you can't do it on your own. You know, Laura at ArtSpace, she's been doing it for 30 plus years. She's amazing and she's accomplished so much, but she's doing it all on her own, which is why it's taken 30 plus years and it's not had a larger reach other than what she's created there at ArtSpace. My goal here eventually down the road, like, you know, Sage will be synonymous with arts in Oklahoma City. Like, that's when a new person moves here, like I did, and Google's, you know, arts, like, they're not going to come across what I came across, right? They're not going to have those same problems. Everything's going to be under that Sage Foundation umbrella, and it's going to be easy to find. They're going to have co-op space. They're going to have studio space. They're going to have mentorships, entrepreneur programs, art therapy. Like, there's a lot. Like I said, big swing we're taking. It's a really big bite we're taking. And then, you know, through our website and through all of our things, like, you're going to have links to places like ArtSpace and OVAC and those resources and stuff. But more so than just like right now, you can go to OVAC and you can see their list of artist resources. And that's all you can do with it. You can see it. With the Sage Arts Foundation, you can contact or show up and meet with one of our artists or one of our members and actually, like, learn it. Yeah. Right, like, actually go through it and do it, and you know, there are programs out there. I think OVAC did one recently, kind of like an entrepreneurship program where an artist or a couple artists went through. They pitched some ideas. Each one got like $1,000 or $5,000, something like that. And there's thousands of programs like that all over the country, where you walk away with a check at the end after you pitched a thing and you did it, whatever. Cool. I mean, what artist doesn't want that, right? That's a check, right? It's fun, but that's it. It's a one and a done, and then you're back to the grind. You didn't learn how to do anything other than the thing you were already doing. Like, now we have a mission statement, and I'm not going to rattle it all off, but like the gist of it for me personally is teach them how to fish. Yeah. Right? Like, I'm not special. Yeah. Everyone can do what I'm doing. Yes, I got very lucky, and yes, maybe
also didn't give up.
That's a big part of it, right? And that's part of the entrepreneur type mentorship program that we will be giving, because there's a lot of things that artists just don't realize. Artists and, you know, the community, right? Like, is that, you know, little things like show up on time, just show up, look presentable, take care of your fitness and your health. You know, take care of your mental health, stretch, you know, like stupid little things that they're not really that stupid.
Make a huge difference.
They're huge, right? Yeah. So, you know, for instance, our members, when they join, and it's a tiered membership, but at the highest tier, like the professional tier, that's the one for like artists who really are ready to take their career seriously. They're ready to like go full time. They've quit their day job and like, this is it. This is what we're doing. That's where we come alongside. It's like one-on-one mentorship. They'll come to, if say I'm mentoring, like they'll come to my studio with me. They'll have hands-on with me. We're going to be providing professional like accountants, lawyers that'll work with our artists. We have like I said, the art therapy and gym memberships, like little things like that you don't think of, like partnering with certain gyms that'll give you a discount to these gym memberships. Partnering with a tailor. I have a tailor that when you join the membership, you get to go to him. You get a suit. You get a free suit tailored for you, because that's important. Look. You know, you got to show up to these big events. You got to
selling your artwork.
How are you? You know, I say I'm lucky. Like, what is luck, right? It's opportunity meets preparedness. Right. So if you get the opportunity to go to a big gala and you don't have a suit, right,
just showing up in your painted jeans and covered in
which is fine. Some artists think that's and to a degree,
I would say, in my experience, you have to get to a level and care first.
Yes.
Right? You have to play the game before you have the freedom to show up in a pair of jeans.
Because to a degree, that's what's really cool. As an artist, like, I mean, I got tattoos everywhere. I can do this with my hair. Like, you can show up and just be an artist and people are like, oh, well, he's an artist, right? Yeah. My day-to-day, most of the time, I wear Crocs. Yeah. But do you think I wore Crocs to Rodeo Drive?
Right.
Right? Like, there's going to be a time in my career that, you know, it doesn't matter. I can wear Crocs up there and they'll be like, no, it doesn't matter. We're still going to buy his work. Yeah. But like you said, read the room. Yeah. So it's important. Mm-hmm. Physical fitness, being in shape, it's important. Eating healthy, super important. Sleeping well, tracking your sleep, little things like that. So like all these things.
Have a cold plunge at your thing.
So that's the thing. Remember, I said we're not going to be providing a lot of these things. We're going to be
an inside joke for people listening because we had to do our fitness challenge and had to jump in a freezing cold tub,
which I hate, but
it worked.
It's necessary. It's necessary.
Yeah.
I think that again, you know, these are things that are important. So if say that's something because it is, you know, works.
Yeah.
The member, you know, like the gym memberships or the places that have it, like we will partner with these places because again, I mean, there is a card, like keep it local card. Like we're going to have our version of that, right? Yeah. Our membership. So that's how you grow the economy, right? And grow our city. Yeah. And we keep it all kind of here. Yeah. The artists can go to Jerry's Artorama. They can go to Home Depot. They can go to, you know, and they get their discounts. And they get their little welcome packages. And there's all these things that we're working on. And then on top of it, you get the one-on-one constantly 24/7 access, like come alongside you, take you under the wing. This is how you go. Like I said, I'm not special. I happened to be ready when the gallery called because I hadn't done anything for months. I had just been able to, I kind of worked on some things and I had some pieces set aside. I had a whole list of projects I knew I wanted to create. So I was ready for it. And I didn't have any other work to do because I had stopped working. And I was in the right headspace. If they had called me 6 months prior, I was not. I would have failed spectacularly. Yeah. So it's, you know, I keep saying it, but it's a real big swing. Like the more I kept looking into like resources and things, the more I started to realize like, oh, well, that's not offered. I guess we got to offer that. And it's like, oh, well, that's not offered. I guess we got to offer that. Oh, that's not offered. I guess.
But there is a need, and that's why I think that, like you said, this is going to be a great for not only yourself, but like great for the community because as an artist, you've seen it. You've seen the need. You know what the need is. You know. It's different if I come in and I'm like, oh, I'm going to help out and do an art foundation, and I know nothing. You know, but you know it from the inside out and can help out, and you bring in others as well who don't know. You know, don't know like who you know. You bring in people who you know, it grows, right, and the you mentioned the lady who's been doing it on her own for 30 years. Like you bring in people who are better at things than you are, and you build out this epic board or this team, and you guys, you know, it's wildly successful.
And you hit it on the head because you're right. Everyone else who's tried doing something like this, right? They're not artists. Yeah. They're suits. They don't know what we need.
They're buyers, I guess.
Right. They want what's the bottom line here? You know, where that's all they care about. Yeah. Even especially the nonprofits, right? Yeah. The nonprofits are for profit, for sure. But you know, I can't do it on my own.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part because I told you earlier, the imposter syndrome doesn't go away. When I sit in my boardroom doing my board meetings, like I'm the president of the organization, and I'm the only one. I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't belong in that room because every one of my board members, like you said, they're handpicked because they're better than me at so many things, right? Like
which is smart on your part, right?
Yeah, like I can't. I don't know anything about grant writing, so we have grant writers, professional grant writers. I don't know anything about, you know, certain other business things. The fact that I called it business things is, you know, goes to show you, like, I don't know anything about it. So we have those people. And, you know, I don't know anything about running a nonprofit or 501c3, but, you know, so the other my co-founder, like, this isn't her first rodeo. She's done several. She founded the Greater Oklahoma City Asian Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
So, which is very successful and killing it and doing well. So, makes perfect sense. Like, I think we'll do well too. And like you said, the biggest part is it's a need. It fulfills a need that honestly baffles me.
Yeah, you're getting to a point like, well, how is this taking so long?
How?
Yeah.
How is it that I am creating this thing that doesn't have competition? That there's not already this, and it's not just the one thing. Like I said, as I was working on it, it's like, oh, well, this isn't offered. Oh, well, this is, like, there is nothing offered here. And it's baffling.
Yeah. It's gonna be great though. Yeah, it's awesome that you're diving into it. Like I said, it's a big swing, but there's a need for it.
No, eventually we want to change. Remember, I talked about what I think about the art district here. We want to change from basically all of Broadway, that automobile alley, from 13th to 8th Street, which is where my studio is. I would like to, this is a long-term goal, but you heard it here first, folks, to turn Automobile Alley into Art Alley. Okay. I want to activate all those alleyways, hire local artists for murals and public arts, kind of like I think Edmond has their Boulevard, right? I want to do a lot of public art scenes, a lot of things, bring in more galleries. So basically, that new development's going in on the corner of 13th there. Yeah. So I want to make all that walkable. And in 10 years, it'll be like that'll be the new official contemporary arts district of Oklahoma City. Okay. It's a big, it's a big ask, but
got a vision.
Yeah,
I love it. Last question. As I know, as you know, and as people won't know this, they'll know it now, is I've had the pleasure of being your real estate agent and finding you a new house. I know it's not your forever home or your dream home, so my last question is, if you were to build your dream home or have your dream home, what is it and what does it look like?
Well, that's interesting because I have to kind of balance that with my wife's dream home as well.
Just yours.
Okay, just
for
mine.
now. Yeah. Super selfish. What do you need?
So I would honestly like my studio that's on 8th and Broadway, that converted into, a livable space. But essentially I really like, I like the idea of like a bond home, right? Part like warehouse industrial, kind of modern, lots of glass, and part Old English castle, like just merged, right? I like the idea of the building itself being the art, like the texture and the walls and the things, and not having like actually a lot of art on it. And so, having like the old, it'd be cool like to either like live in a castle and have like modern stuff, or to live in like a modern home and bring in like old pillars and statues and stuff like that, all in like a very Bond type underground mountain type lair. Yeah. Which you could do like downtown with my warehouse. Like, it's a big industrial kind of a warehouse. You could bring in elements of like old pillars. I mean, dead people stuff. Like, I could just shop at dead people stuff, right? And
shout out dead people.
I guess shout out to dead people stuff. But I like that aesthetic a lot. I mean, you've been to my studio. I even my studio's decorated that way as well. I like old. I like character, but I like modern amenities and convenience. Yeah. I don't like old drafty. I don't like lots of bugs and cobwebs. Okay. Awesome. So find me that. Find me that.
Yeah. Definitely. I will find that.
Did you ever watch? I don't know if you guys watched this back home, but did you watch Gargoyles?
No.
Okay, I didn't. You probably didn't. There's a cartoon I watched as a kid called Gargoyles, and the the villain of the story. He's like this uber billionaire. He builds a skyscraper in the middle of the city, and then he pays to have this ancient castle flown from across the other side of the world, piece by piece, and reassembled exactly perfectly on the top of his skyscraper.
Awesome. Yeah.
Right? Okay. And so, like, I've always wanted to live there.
I'll have to find a picture of it. People listening and watching they're probably, some people are listening, but I know what you're talking about.
No one's listened this far into it.
Oh, yeah, they have. Mate, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming in. Thanks for sharing your story, sharing your mission. People get to know a little bit, behind what is you and Sage Art and Sage Art Foundation. And so people listening can keep an eye out on your socials and keep an eye out for when the launch of the Art Foundation is, and keep an eye on our socials. I'd happily share it when it comes out. And if people are listening to this and want to reach out to you, either to learn as an artist or to buy a piece or to commission you, what's the best way to do it?
That would be through the gallery. So that's Winslavin, WINN, and then SLAVIN.
Okay.
You just go to their website. You'd contact the gallery. All sales and commissions go through them. Mm-hmm. Other than that, you can follow me personally on my Instagram page, which is just sage_art. And then, of course, the foundation. That'll all be up soon. We're still working on all of that, so I don't have all of the details and information for that, but that will just be the Sage Arts Foundation, so you can Google that and find the website and all of the socials that we'll have for that. That'll be probably within the next week or so. Okay. And then otherwise, if you're local, my studio is located on 8th and Broadway, and
awesome. Yeah. Full of couches.
It's really
full of sectionals.
It's really not full of. Actually, you know what? It is right now.
It is right now
because I've been procuring furniture and things for the foundation to it is filled with televisions and couches and rugs and everything right now. All
Jay's
in the
side hobby is searching Facebook Marketplace for couches. He's very good at it. Anyway, we could dive down that rabbit hole. We don't want to right now. Mate, appreciate you. Thanks for coming in. People listening, I will put every link in the description that Jay mentioned. If the website for the foundation is out, by the time this goes out, that'll be down there as well. If not, keep an eye out on the socials. And we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.